Some new reporting on New York Attorney General Letitia James's investigation into the Trump Organization. The former president's two eldest children, Donald Trump Jr. and Ivanka, have testified in the tax fraud probe. Sources tell NBC News that Don Jr. appeared last week while Ivanka testified yesterday. According to those sources, neither of them exercised their Fifth Amendment rights during their testimony. The former president himself is expected to speak to the Attorney General's team in the coming weeks. Joining us now, Suzanne Craig, New York Times investigative reporter, and Tim O'Brien, senior executive editor for Bloomberg Opinion. They both are MSNBC contributors. Thank you and welcome to you both. Suzanne, what could Don Jr. and Ivanka offer investigators about their father's business practices? What's so juicy that they could share?
Well, it is interesting at the top. You noted that they did not take the Fifth, and that does differ from Eric and from Alan Weiselberg, the former CFO of the company. You know, with them, the two children are potentially, and this may have factored into why they didn't take the Fifth, because they may not be as involved in some of the minutia of this case that we think, but they're involved in the day-to-day operations, and they would have been in touch potentially. This is a case that looks at appraisals and the appraisal of real estate and whether or not laws were broken. You know, did they give advice to banks or documentation to banks that was potentially false? What were their communications with the main appraiser that's on the case? So there's a lot of stuff there that they could have provided that the Attorney General would be very interested in.
So, Suzanne, the Trump family is also facing the civil probe into their finances, and there's also the lingering criminal probe by the Manhattan DA's office, who will be looking for Trump's deposition for any new leads. A very real case, a criminal case against the Trump Organization and Alan Weiselberg. It will be going to trial unless it settles. So what are the stakes there for the Trump family as they, as they cooperate with these investigations?
Well, very, very high, I would think, on both. With the criminal, if there is a criminal trial and they're convicted, it could have huge ramifications on the company. Potentially, could put them out of business. And it will affect their lines of credit. Their ability to borrow and the rates they can borrow at. The civil case is sort of another. It's sort of connected. It's happening with the Attorney General. A civil case, they could face fines and could go to trial on that as well. These are two very serious things simmering in New York for them.
Tim, back to the Fifth Amendment for a little bit. You tweeted a quote from a New York Times piece the other day, in which it highlights how Trump ridicules witnesses for taking the Fifth Amendment. So, do you think we'll see Trump take the Fifth? And if he does, is he going to ridicule himself?
Michael, he never ridicules himself, so I don't expect to see that happen. I imagine his lawyers are advising him will probably advise him to take the Fifth because he's a tricky client to put under testimony. He has a penchant for exaggeration, which alone is problematic, but he also can almost be a pathological liar and misrepresent his track record frequently. He tried to do that under oath. When my lawyers deposed him in our litigation, we had the virtue of having documents we could push across the table towards him that contradicted earlier statements he had made about a wide variety of things. Having said all that, though, I think there's still a very high hurdle for the New York Attorney General's office to meet here in proving fraud. They're going to have to show that the Trumps knowingly misled the banks and that the banks ultimately, I think, were victimized. Some of at least the evidence that come into the public record indicates that both the Manhattan District Attorney's Office and the New York Attorney General are relying on these statements of financial condition that Trump used to give to the media and to others as proclamations of what his wealth was. And those were very loosely drawn documents. They weren't, they didn't pass muster with most accounting principles. He used them, I think, as a document that allowed him to brag. It's not clear to me that any of the banks relied on those documents to make loans to him. And on top of it, they're sophisticated organizations that are supposed to do their own due diligence. So I think some of that has to get settled out from an evidentiary standpoint. And we still don't know enough about the full body of evidence prosecutors have, but there's no question that they're exposed. I think the second issue here is Donald Trump is a potential landmine for his lawyers under deposition because he's undisciplined. He likes to exaggerate, and he probably won't stay on script unless they tell him to simply take the fifth repeatedly and repeatedly. I think it's interesting that the children didn't take the fifth. It would suggest to me they don't think they're exposed. But we know that Ivanka was one of the primary liaisons to Deutsche Bank. Don Jr. helped manage 40 Wall Street. Those are all either relationships or transactions that the prosecutors are looking at. So we'll have to see how that side of it plays out as well, too.
So wrapping up with you, Tim, real quick, what are Letitia James's next steps? What does she have left at this point?
Well, I have to believe that she's at the end of her fact-gathering process. I don't think she would depose Trump if that wasn't close to an endpoint. So I think the next step is whether or not she indicts the Trump organization, Trump and his children.
All right. Suzanne Craig and Tim O'Brien, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
A quick break for us. We'll be right back.